Have you ever wanted to start a podcast but had no idea where to begin? Well, you're not alone because most business leaders. Have you ever wanted to start a podcast but had no idea where to begin? You are not alone because most business leaders I speak to have thought about it, talked about it, and then done absolutely nothing about it because it all felt too complicated or too technical or just too far outside their comfort zone. And today, I hope that some of what you hear will fix that because it has never been simpler to start a podcast. And in the era of the personal brand, it is one of the best things you can do for your business. You'll have heard the phrase loads of times before, people buy from people, and it has never been more important in the age of AI. People don't buy from logos or websites or carefully worded LinkedIn posts that sound like they were, well, quite frankly, created in AI. They buy from people they trust, people they feel like they know, people whose thinking they have been following over time. A podcast puts you in someone's ears on their commute, in their kitchen, on their run, and that kind of intimacy builds trust much faster than almost any other form of content. I have clients who have used their podcast to interview everyone from Stephen Bartlett to Chris Voss, and that kind of association builds credibility incredibly fast. And I have other clients who simply talk straight to camera, just like I am today, sharing their own thinking and expertise every single week. Both approaches work. The key is finding the one that suits your comfort zone. And if you're not comfortable on camera yet, do not let that stop you. This is where Teleprompter Pro comes in brilliantly, or Nano Prompter. These are simple apps that sit on your phone or tablet and scrolls your script at exactly the pace you need. You look natural, you stay on track, and nobody watching has any idea you're reading. It is a game changer for anyone who knows what they want to say but struggles to say it fluently on camera. They're also brilliant for if you're wanting to create social media reels. You do not need to be a natural. You just need to start. So let's build this step by step. So step one is to start small. Before we get into the detail, I want to say something really important here. Do not try to launch a 45-minute podcast on week one. Start with 5 to 10 minutes. Get comfortable with the format. Find your rhythm and find what you want to talk about. You will improve every single week, and a short podcast that exists and gets published is worth infinitely more than a perfect long one that never gets recorded or published. So start small, publish it, and improve it as you go. Step two is to find your niche. So I see podcasters and they're going too broad. And this is really important before you buy any equipment. You need to be really clear on what your podcast is actually about. Don't go broad, be specific. Most SME business leaders already have a niche. It is what they do every day. The mistake is trying to make the podcast too broad in an attempt to appeal to everyone, which usually means it connects deeply with absolutely no one. So think about who you're trying to reach and what problem you're trying to solve for them. Then build your podcast around that. The more specific you are, the easier it is to build a loyal audience of exactly the right people. Your podcast name matters too. Keep it simple. A catchy phrase followed by your name works incredibly well. And think about what your ideal listener would search for. And make sure your name gives them a clear sense of what they're going to get. And that's really important to be found on YouTube. Step 3, start with YouTube. And I'm going to tell you why. If you try and go to too many platforms, you'll never start anywhere. And most people kind of assume a podcast lives on Spotify or Apple and YouTube and Amazon. But I want you to start with YouTube because YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. When you upload your podcast to YouTube, you're not just reaching podcast listeners, you're reaching everyone searching for answers to the questions you're talking about. That is a completely different and much larger audience. YouTube also favours video content in its algorithm, which means your podcast has a genuine chance of being discovered by people who have never heard of you. Spotify and Apple don't work in this way. You have to be found on there. But on YouTube, you can be stumbled upon from somebody who had never heard of you 24 hours ago. Once you're set up on YouTube and in a rhythm, you can then push your audio out to Apple and Podcasts and Spotify through a platform like Libsyn or Riverside. Riverside records your video and audio in high quality separately, which makes editing much cleaner. Whereas Libsyn then distributes your audio to every major podcast platform automatically. But start with YouTube. Use your iPhone. Get comfortable. Build the habit and then expand from there if you so desire. Step 4, get your YouTube channel set up properly. And this is really important. Before you post a single episode, get your YouTube channel set up properly. This takes about an hour and it matters more than people actually realise, because when you write a clear channel description that tells people exactly who you help and what your podcast is about, you can be found more easily. Use the words your ideal audience would actually search for. Create a channel banner that matches your podcast artwork so everything looks consistent and professional. Canva has even got free templates that make this a very straightforward process. Make sure you add your website, your links, and your social media links to your channel profile. Make it easy for someone who discovers you on YouTube to find you where you are everywhere else. That's really important. Set up a playlist specifically for your podcast episodes. YouTube rewards watch time, and a playlist encourages people to keep watching episode after episode. So find those categories and make sure you add your podcasts there. And make sure to write a proper description for your show notes for every episode you upload. Include the main keywords from the episode, a summary of what is covered, your timestamps, and your contact details. Because again, this is what helps YouTube understand what your content is about and who to show it to. Step 5, and this is all around formatting. So there are 2 formats that work brilliantly well for SME business leaders. And those include the first, which is an interview format, and this is where you bring on guests, you have a conversation, and your audience learns from both of you. This works really well if you enjoy kind of talking to people and if you have a network you can draw on. Your guests will often share the episode with their own audience too, which helps to grow your reach every single time. The next option that you have is the straight to camera option. And this is just your thinking and your experience, no guess, no conversation, just utter clarity. And this works brilliantly for building personal authority because it is entirely your voice and your point of view week after week. And if you're not sure which one suits you, try both and see which feels more natural. And maybe you'll use a combination of both. Step 6 is your equipment. And this is the one that gets people, I think, stops people from actually starting a podcast, because people get overwhelmed with the equipment that they need and they think they need this big, amazing professional studio. You do not. For audio, you just need a decent microphone. And, at the lower end of that, you've got the Samsung Q2U, which is around £60 to £70 and plugs directly into your laptop via USB. It sounds significantly better than your built-in microphone, and it's a perfectly solid place to get started. But if you want to invest a little more, the Shure MV7X is around £120 to £150 and is a genuinely excellent microphone that will serve you for years. I personally use a Shure because I like the tone of it. At the higher end, the Shure SM7DB sits at around £350 to £400 and is the microphone you see in most professional studios. You do not need this to start, however. but it is worth knowing it exists when you're ready to upgrade. For video, your phone is absolutely fine when you're starting out. So modern smartphones shoot in exceptionally high quality, and there is no shame in using one. When you're ready to invest in a dedicated camera, the Sony ZV-E10 is around £500 to £600 with a lens and is one of the best entry-level podcast cameras available on the market. For recording and hosting guests remotely, Riverside is excellent. Plans start from around £15 per month, and the quality it produces is significantly better than a standard Zoom call or Teams, whatever you happen to be using. And finally, your lighting. Inexpensive, a ring light or a simple key light makes an enormous difference to how professional your video looks. You can pick up a decent one for between £30 and £80. And then step 7, your artwork. Again, you don't need to spend a fortune on this. Your podcast artwork is the first thing a potential listener sees. It needs to be clear, professional, and immediately communicative of what the podcast is all about. So keep it simple. It's just your name, your podcast name, and either your face or a strong visual that represents your topic. Big, bold text that reads clearly even when the artwork is displayed at thumbnail size on a phone. Canva has excellent podcast cover templates and is free to use. But if you'd rather hand it over to someone, Fiverr has designers who will create fantastic professional podcast artwork for anywhere between £30 and £100. So it's a very cost-effective way of doing it. Step 8, the content engine. And this is the amazing thing about generating a podcast. And it's the bit that people miss. And it's probably one of the reasons a podcast is such an extraordinary valuable use of your time. Here's what a typical week looks like once you're set up. You'll spend probably 1 hour prepping your script or your outline. You use Teleprompter Pro to record it cleanly and confidently. Recording takes another hour. Total time invested is maybe 2 to 3 hours. And here's what that gives you. And it's an extraordinary amount of content. So you'll get 1 full podcast episode on YouTube, 4 to 6 clips for YouTube Shorts, Instagram, Reels, and LinkedIn, for example. 1 blog post written from the transcript, which also helps with your SEO. You've also got 2 or 3 standalone social media posts pulled from the key points. You're just getting loads of content. 1 email for your newsletter, for example, and 2 or to 3 hours worth of work. You've got an entire week of content across every platform. And that is the power of building a podcast as the engine of your content strategy. Step 9, promoting with shorts and video AI. So you obviously want to get your podcast out there, and shorts on YouTube are one of the most powerful ways to promote your full podcast and bring in a completely new audience. The idea is simple. You take your full episode and cut it into short clips between 45 and 90 seconds that work as standalone pieces of content. Each one should make a strong point, share a surprising insight, or say something that makes someone stop scrolling and think, I want to hear more of that. Now, cutting clips used to take forever. It used to take forever when it was manual, but now this is where Vidyo AI comes into its own. There's other platforms out there that do it as well, but I prefer Vidyo AI because it takes your full video, automatically identifies the most engaging moments, and cuts them into short clips ready to post. It adds captions, formats them for vertical video, and saves you hours of editing time every single week. You upload your episode, it does the work, and you have your shorts ready to go. Post 2 to 4 shorts across the week between your full episodes. Tuesday for your main episode, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for your shorts. This keeps your channel active every single business day and puts your content in front of new audiences consistently. And do not just post and disappear. Spend 15 minutes after you post responding to comments, because YouTube's algorithm rewards early engagement, and replies in the first hour of posting make a significant difference to how widely your episode gets distributed. So the honest truth about starting, and this is key, 99% of podcasts fall if they release fewer than 3 episodes. So before you've launched publicly, record at least 3 episodes. Get comfortable with the format, learn what works, then go live. Avoid perfection, because you're not going to get it in this game. You do not need it to be perfect. You just need it to exist and improve from there. Start with 5 to 10 minutes. Use Teleprompter Pro so you're not stumbling over your words. Post it on YouTube. Use Vidyo AI to cut your shorts. Turn the transcript into a blog and send it to your email list. Then do the same again next week. And in the era of the personal brand, your competitors are still hiding behind their logo, and you have a prime opportunity right now to show up and share what you know and build the kind of trust that turns listeners into clients. All you have to do is press record. So that's everything again for this week. And if you find this content useful, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next week.